Welcome everyone. We have here Jim Green, who graduated from University of Iowa in 1979 in space physics. He also worked in NASA for around 40 years. He was the ex-chief scientist in NASA. And today we have him here, and welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm just delighted to be here in such a beautiful city.
Thank you very much. Today we had the launch of the Sustainability Space Challenge.
Yes, indeed.
What do you think? A lot of people are going to join. Is it going to be fun?
Oh, not only is it going to be fun, but it's a start, I think, of much more thinking from our next generation, our youth, about how we can use space to be able to manage resources here on Earth. Okay. And that's so important if we're going to survive on this planet for long periods of time.
Definitely. So, Jim, I have a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask you category, and you're going to choose, right? Oh, so let's talk either science, economics, or future. It's all about space, but which one?
Well, of course, as a scientist, I'd rather talk about science.
Okay, economy, thank you. So there was something in the news in 2013 that the budget for the air conditioning in the US military is more than the budget for NASA. I mean, what happened to us, like, as humans, as species? I mean, we can't be stupid. I mean, definitely we're smart, but why don't we see this as a necessity? Why don't we see it as important?
Well, it turns out, I'm not sure that what was reported is correct. NASA's budget is about $25 billion. It's a very healthy budget. In the political climate we're in, it also is very unusual to get both Republicans and the Democrats to agree to support NASA. So it's very what we call bipartisan support.
Okay.
Now, the United States has a huge budget for many things.
Okay.
And like everyone, you have priorities. And you must be able to make those priorities and put your money in the appropriate buckets.
Okay.
It's all about balance.
Okay.
How much money do we want to spend in space? How much money do we want to spend on a variety of other activities, our medical infrastructure, taking care of the elderly? There's many different government programs that do those kind of things.
All right, Jim. So do you think the lack of government funding around the globe in different organizations kind of opened the door? It was an opportunity for private companies to enter the market, such as Blue Origin, SpaceX, and so on. I think, what do you call it? Venture capital. Venture capital,
yeah, right.
As well, as some sort of a market that they can capitalize on.
Well, I think 20 years or so ago, NASA really recognized that now that we have lived and worked in space, we've gone to many of the planets, we've been observing so many things about finding other planets around other stars, that there's an opportunity for commercial ventures to get involved and see what can be done in low Earth orbit. That's really important because that is the next step of being able to look globally as to what's happening. You know, things that happen locally are in many ways affected by global phenomena, whether it's our climate or it's the ocean salinity or, so many things that happen around the world eventually affect our local life. And so we need to be space aware of what's happening. But in that time period, in the early 2000s, NASA really started to support commercial ventures. It actually invested in several commercial ventures to get them up and running and doing a variety of new things, in terms of being able to deliver astronauts to space station. So that's on its way.
And did that, for an example, SpaceX and their initiatives to reduce usage of rockets, using a rocket more than one time, because a lot of people doesn't know that a rocket, most of the parts of it, it's gone in.
Correct.
Do you think that kind of helped the field?
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a game changer in many ways. You know, if you can lower the price of what it takes to get into orbit, then you have the opportunity to put more things into orbit.
Okay.
And you can turn things around much more quickly.
Okay.
So it then becomes much more economical to do.
Okay.
And that provides all kinds of open doors for a lot of these commercial companies to walk in and begin to think about some of the things that they can do for creating commercial products to sell to the public.
Okay.
Or even other nations.
Nice. Now this question kind of two-parter. Earth, just like what, 400, 500 million years, wasn't really sustainable for human living, right? 500 million, was it?
Well, 500 million years ago, you know, was quite a different period of time when the globe had a significantly different climate.
Yeah.
So the climate on Earth actually does nothing but change.
Yeah.
And life as it began 3.8 billion years ago has gone through a significant evolution.
And if we see, for an example, Mars, there was some reports that Mars was at one point could sustain life, right?
Indeed, that's what some of our rovers have found out. You know, we've landed Spirit and Opportunity, Curiosity and Perseverance, and they've really understood the interaction between water in the past and the rock and soils and minerals to create new minerals that can only be created by water. And we're now measuring those. We now know that Mars in the past had an enormous amount of water. So 3 billion years ago, Mars was a blue planet.
Nice.
And in fact, if we had Earth life, like microbial life, delivered to Mars, it would grow, it would survive, and it would be everywhere on the planet.
Is there any evidence for an example, any microbial life, even fossils on Mars? I mean, I know there's some theories behind it and all, but why haven't, I mean, if there was water, if it's within the...
Well, if you can imagine what will happen on this globe if we didn't have water, you know, the plant life would die, it would become a desert. And in fact, we go through a climatic cycle that every 12,000 years, the Sahara becomes very green.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a green Sahara that occurs in those cycles. But where are the plants now? You know, they are organic material that gets decomposed. So when we go to Mars, we're looking for organic material that is decomposed.
Okay.
So when we go and we make samples, you know, with Curiosity, for instance, we found out right away the soils have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and all the right sulfur and all the right stuff for creating cells and life. And so that was a really great finding. We also find that it had water, and if it's got all the right ingredients and it has water, that indeed perhaps it did have some sort of life in the past.
Jim, did you watch the movie Martian?
I did.
I just came from Jordan just
yes.
a month ago,
yes,
where they shot the movie.
Where all the outdoor shots were done.
How scientifically accurate is that academically? I mean,
it
let's
actually,
give it a percentage.
Yeah. Percentage-wise, I'd say it's probably pushing 85%.
Oh wow, 85%.
Yeah.
That's massive for a movie.
Yeah, it really is. It's really quite good. There's a couple things about it that just don't work.
Yeah.
You know, such as the big dust storm. Mars has dust storms. They have seasons where it can even go globally, but they don't have the punch that you saw in the movie.
Okay.
Mars does have wind. In fact, we have global circulation models of Mars. We can predict the weather on Mars.
Okay.
Much like we could predict the weather here on Earth 30 or 40 years ago.
Wow.
We're at that elementary stage on Mars. Okay,
that's very
and we
interesting.
can recreate some of the dust storms. We can see some of the conditions that arise.
Okay.
We also can determine the wind velocity.
Oh.
And so Mars actually has a rather brisk wind. At times it can be more than 100
Massive
miles.
storms, right?
Yeah, more than 100 miles an hour can push dust around. Okay. But it's still not enough to straighten a flag if it's sat on the surface.
Okay.
And the reason why is the pressure is so low.
Yeah, as we spoke about the helicopter, right? Many people say, but it's going to be very expensive to do any missions, right? I mean, sending a probe to a different planet, say a telescope, on and on you know, on an economic scale, like countrywide or global wide. How expensive is it? Is it really hard to get into that field?
So indeed, let's talk about one of the big rovers. You know, I was the head of planetary science during the time we constructed Perseverance.
Yeah.
I was also head of planetary science when we actually constructed Curiosity and landed Curiosity.
Wow.
Okay, so Curiosity is a 1 metric ton rover, about the size of an SUV, okay, and does an amazing amount of work. And it cost about 2.5 billion US dollars, okay? But where did that money go? 99% of that money is here on this earth. It invests in the people. It invests in our computer technologies. It invests in refining instruments that we use in other cases. In fact, one of the instruments does a fabulous job of analyzing spectra that's actually being used commercially to determine if a malaria drug is a fake or a real drug.
Nice, that's very interesting.
So what happens when we do things
And
like...
that's the biggest killer
of course.
Of people.
It's a huge step, you know, in terms of health and healthcare. We needed it because we were looking at certain things on Mars. And entrepreneurs realized how important that would be to take that technology and apply it to a real life example here on Earth. That happens all the time, okay? Now, you have a phone. You know, I don't know how many pictures were taken today at our event. But I would say there were several thousand. The cameras on these iPhones, a lot of the technology that was created behind them was done because of the space program.
Oh, wow.
So indeed...
something we use every day.
Something we use every day. And that happens all the time.
That's nice. That's amazing, Jim, to be honest. Not many people realize how much is that affecting us. And a substantial increase, let's say 300% increase in budget in space, what would it be like? Just for someone who worked in NASA for 4 years and have seen the changes.
Yes. So getting a large sum of money all at once is actually very difficult to manage. Okay, and the reason why is it takes time to plan, it takes time to design, it takes time to develop. It's investments in technology, in computers, in people. And so those require a steady budget, not a budget that peaks and then goes down. So if we were to have a druther, you know, what would be our choice? Or what's our druthers about this? We call it. Well, we would want an increasing budget that where each year we could handle that additional funding, and it would go towards a productive next block element that we would develop that then we would use.
So more projects.
Yeah, we would create new projects, new ideas, and then begin to invest in the technologies to be able to do that. I mean, Webb is a perfect example of that. James Webb Space Telescope is an enormous telescope. I mean, the largest telescope we've ever launched.
Wow.
And it's using a really creative technology.
I mean, Hubble was massive, so James Webb is like a couple of times larger.
Oh yeah, 6.9 times.
Wow, wow.
So I mean, with Hubble, it's a mirror.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have to lift that mass. With Webb, the concept of the mirror is that we're going to developing them in segments. We're going to then deploy them into a larger mirror, and then we're going to focus them by deforming the surface. So we have literally little actuators in the back of these that push and pull and create the focus we need to then make the images that we do.
And the orbital mechanics behind that, sending it, is going to be really crazy, right?
Well, it was.
It was, yeah.
But look at all those things that we were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
You know, new technologies, you know, beryllium mirrors, the ability to fold it up like, you know, like origami, and then put it together,
So it opens up.
and then put it in a place 1 million miles behind the Earth, at a very unique spot we call a Lagrangian point. And in this point, we actually have the tug of the Earth that pulls on it just right, so that it follows the Earth as we go around the sun.
Okay. That's great, Jim. Honestly, I feel I don't feel the time talking with you. A lot of interesting questions, but I don't want to take more of your time. I just want to get a last word from you. Why do you think investing in space and focusing in space is important, and how do you see the future?
All right. To me, it's rather clear. This human species cannot survive if we don't go into space. The problems that we have are global. We all breathe the air. We all enjoy the sea. We fish out of the sea. You know, there's resources that are plentiful in sometimes, and if we destroy that plentifulness, it will doom our life as we know it. We have to work together to be able to understand how the Earth evolves and changes. Turns out the only way to do that is from space. Let me give you an example. NASA, with another agency called NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, have a series of satellites for which we bring in that data and we create one number a year. And it's the average temperature of the Earth.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, here on Earth, we could create that number if we created a grid and then put a temperature measurements at every place on that grid, and then took that measurement every few minutes, and then had an enormous amount of data, and then crunched it down and create that number. That's impossible. We can't do that over the ocean. We can't do that over the poles. And yet, 75% of the Earth is water. We need the ability to take in from space the measurements necessary to create that one number. And that one number tells us that the temperature of the Earth is increasing. That's the average temperature. And that is a really big deal.
Yeah. And I think when we saw Earth, when we first went to the moon, and we saw Earth as one
Correct.
plan, one entity,
Right.
without borders, nothing. You know, we started realizing it's not something that's happening somewhere else, that's not relevant to me. It's us. What do you see the future like?
Well, I believe we're becoming far more space aware around the world. You know, we use space in our daily lives, even to go to the grocery store or a different place or a location. We use our navigation tools, which are created by signals from space to be able to get us to where we need to go. So there's enormous benefits just in the simple things. Then making observations of the Earth enable us to then understand how the changes of the Earth are occurring, and what we need to do if we're not happy with the way it's changing, we're not happy with the way it's evolving. You know, humans on this planet have evolved, animals on this planet have evolved over time. And evolution occurs, but it occurs gradually. It occurs over thousands of years. And so as the temperature normally changes gradually on this Earth, animals and human life have evolved and changed. The temperatures that are changing today are so rapid that instead of thousands of years, it's 100 years. We cannot evolve fast enough. We then must seek solutions on how we're going to be able to interact with the climate that we all
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the future of space is enormous, and we must be working hard to educate all our students about the benefits of space, get them excited about doing that, and get that knowledge integrated in how they think.
Yeah.
We want them to think globally and act locally
As one planet. Yeah.
as one planet.
Thank you very much, Jim. Definitely, I'm just going to give you two gifts. This is 2 books I wrote about space.
Oh, wonderful.
But they're in Arabic.
Ah, super.
This is 11 Most Dangerous Planets on the Universe.
Ooh, 11.
And this is The Universe in Your Hands. Most of these are for teenagers.
Wonderful.
who
Would you
get
sign
into
them
space.
for me?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Good.
So
Thank you.
take